Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm excited. I have my new friend, Nikki Barua, with me today. And Nikki and I are apparently besties already. Nikki, welcome to the show. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Jeff, I'm so thrilled to be on your show and get to know more about you. I'm a futurist at my core. I think the thing that I've obsessed about my whole life is looking into the future, finding the thing that I get obsessed about and passionate about, and finding a way to get there. And so that's been the through line of my career, whether it was helping some of the world's largest companies adapt to the future and become more innovative. I say I'm in the business of making elephants run, helping big companies operate faster. And also as an entrepreneur, having built a lot of companies at the, edge of the future, of being really innovative and helping to solve problems that so people can adapt to change. And today, that problem that I'm focused on is closing the divide between AI racing ahead and humans getting left behind. And so my company, Flipwork, is focused on helping people evolve alongside AI and become exponentially capable.
I love that. And I think one of the reasons you and I most connected coming into this is that I deeply believe that we have humans with superpowers. We don't need to eliminate them. We just need to get the garbage out of their day. And I love humans augmented with AI. So let's talk a little bit. First, we're going to talk about your origin story because, I could read your list of accomplishments. It's long. I'm going to put it in the show notes so that people can read at their convenience. But you went from corporate, which, by the way, I don't know if you realize how rare that is.
Mm-hmm.
But you went from corporate to success as an entrepreneur. I have a feeling you were an entrepreneur at the corporate job. But what was the transition like for you? You were telling me about your revenue numbers in your first couple of years. I want to share that story because to me, that is the heart of entrepreneurial. We beat ourselves up when we cross finish lines we didn't know were there.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's even within my corporate career, I was definitely the entrepreneur. I always had this way of looking at things that were different from how other people looked at it. I could see patterns that other people missed. I could look around corners, and most importantly, I could find ways to solve customer pain points in truly unique ways. And that's what led to a lot of new ideas that I brought to the table, even within my corporate career. And I've always focused on enterprise deals, so like serving Fortune 500 companies. So that was my background in my corporate career, is doing large deals, working with major customers, solving massive multi-billion-dollar problems. And so when I eventually left my corporate career to follow my entrepreneurial dreams, it wasn't the typical sort of corporate executive sort of, walks away from the C-suite and corner office and then becomes a, startup founder. It was more like I'd always been that person, but now I was kind of following my dreams on my own path. But what really shaped that journey to becoming a founder was that my frame of reference was still very much based on the world I'd come from. Large deals, big name clients, really massive, complex problem solving. So even though it was a tiny startup, I didn't think small. I didn't expect less, and I didn't want to do simple stuff. I still wanted to do the same thing. And that pretty much became the frame of reference. And frankly, this what propelled us into success. And my big takeaway from that experience is your frame of reference defines the ceiling you put on yourself. And if your frame of reference is large, you're going to have a higher ceiling. And that makes a difference because we often think what is possible is based on what we've already seen. And that's important to, keep in mind. Your capabilities and your skills aren't limited, but your vision may be.
Well, I'm sensing something very interesting. I'm going to pull out here, but your ceiling also impacted what you believe the floor should be. And I think that, there's that old saying, everybody's ceiling is someone else's floor. But the reality is your expectation of what's possible also said, here's what I'm not willing to accept. And I want to pull that out because I meet a lot of founders who are, somebody was really excited because they reached 100,000 a year in recurring revenue after 5 years. And I went, but weren't you making 200,000 a year in corporate? So to me, it was an interesting, and I'm going to pull this out because they sold small SaaS products in corporate. So to them, a $20 deal was equally celebrated with, a big deal, which was $100. And I'm like, that's a sad little floor. I mean, actually, it's a sad little ceiling. So you somehow came out with that giant ceiling. So clearly, as you said, you were making the elephants dance. Training the mice or smaller would not have appealed to you. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I'd looked at it quite that way. So that's really interesting thing that you pulled out about having a floor that's also higher than what I was willing to accept. And I think that's absolutely right, that even in starting that first company, at no point did I think, oh, well, we have no team, no investors, no resources. Let's just do business with the mom and pop shop down the road. Like that was not even, that hadn't even crossed my mind that, well, they might pay me 5,000 or 10,000. Like, I'll take that. It was never an option. Right off the bat, it was like, I knew here are the top 10 companies in the Fortune 100 that I want to target. And I'm going to find a way to get into those companies. And the average deal size is going to be at least $1 million. It's going to be not less than that. So it was that mindset was, what it forced me to do is keep my focus on what my goal was rather than get distracted by the scarcity or, the easy path where you could get money from anywhere. Ultimately, as a founder, every founder knows if there's a way you need to pay your bills, you'll figure it out. But it can also be a distraction. And when you are willing to do anything, you don't do the one thing that makes a difference.
I love that. And, I'm going to borrow the red ocean, blue ocean concept, but I talk a lot about krill hunting. A lot of people go out and they're fishing and they're happy to catch krill. But I'm like, the problem with krill is they're so tiny. When you catch them, you got to come back and figure out how to split the harvest. Whereas if you go whale hunting, and that's the difference. If you look at a lot of indigenous tribes, the ones that really thrive, they knew how to do the hunter-gatherer thing, but the gathering was to survive through the lean seasons. The hunting was about the big catch. And not to say that we need to treat our clients like, targets to be hunted, but the problem with small clients is when you catch them, you've got to deal with them.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people are like, oh, it's not worth going after a big elephant. And it's like, is it not worth it? Seriously? That's, So,
well, what I would say to that, though, I think it's playing to your strengths and the world you understand. Ultimately, for me, it was, I'd always been in the enterprise world. Trying to go consumer side or doing something different or SMB business, even if there was possibility there, it wasn't a match for who I am and how I operate and what I know. I would have probably over-engineered solutions trying to solve things for SMB or for consumer. So it's not one type of client is better or worse. It's knowing the world where you are, most likely to succeed and have skills and capabilities built for that. But it also means you have to be willing to deal with the pain that comes with that choice. In my case, one of the things that happened is because I set the target on like major brands, one of our clients, one of the prospects I was chasing, we had to go through RFP processes, when you deal with enterprise customers.
Yeah.
Well, we lost 11 RFPs back to back to back. Now, every RFP it costs real money to
Yep.
spend time building proposals and coming up with solutions, and it's all like you're making no money while you're doing that. You're giving them an asset with your thinking and your ideas, and then you lose the deal. Not to mention it takes 3 months for every cycle. So 11 losses back to back to back. And I remember my team telling me, like, we should just change direction and go to, target smaller companies that are more likely to give us business. And I just stayed stuck on that. I was like, no, this is what we have to endure. And once we get on the other side of it, everything will change. And sure enough, the 12th time we won, and it was a massive contract, and it set the path for really rapid growth after that.
I love that. And I think that's the thing people give up too soon. Now let's talk about, we'll pivot to Flipwork in a second here, but when you were in the second year of your startup, you received a call from someone that you thought was a spam or a prank. Tell me about that call, because I think that is the root of the joy we're going to discover here.
Yeah. So, when, because I came from this large deal, big revenue type of environment in my corporate career, when I stepped into entrepreneurship, that was my frame of reference. So it was, my goal was never to build a small business. It was like, I'm going to build a big business and target big clients and have big revenue targets. And so my first year revenue target was like $5 million, and we didn't hit it. We came out around like 4 million or something. And I remember thinking, my gosh, we failed. Like, this is terrible. We didn't hit our target. And the next year we doubled that. And again, I thought I'd failed, because like we keep failing the target that we are setting. But in the meantime, what I didn't realize was that it was such a rare accomplishment to become a multi-million-dollar company within your first year and then continue to grow at that rate. And especially as a female founder who's, immigrant, non-white, gay, all of those, segments that I belonged in, that very few people like me had accomplished that. So one day I get a call from Ernst & Young, and it's part of their like female, entrepreneurial winning women recognition. And it's basically like, hey, you're in the top female founders in North America. And, you've won this recognition. And I literally thought it was, like a spam call. And it's a pretty thorough process of, they audit everything and they check everything. But when I went through that process, I totally expected that, we wouldn't even make it anywhere. And so we, not to like actually get that recognition. I still remember that feeling, getting that phone call and thinking, how is that even possible? We've been failing every year. But it goes to show that like when your ceiling, is really high, you may not hit that ceiling, but it's sort of like aim for the stars and at least you'll get to the moon type of thing. That we got to the moon and it was far beyond what anybody else had accomplished. That's when for the first time, I started looking at the data and realized, wow, so few businesses even get to 1 million. And when they get there, it takes them years to get there. So, that in my expectations since then, every business has been like, okay, now it's like get there in 6 months, so changes your strategy because your expectations of yourself are different.
Now, as you were going through that process, what percentage of female-led businesses were hitting and exceeding the million or 10 million mark? You gave me a number earlier, and I just want to pull that out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the latest stats, but I remember at that time it was something like less than 4% or something like that hit that mark. And a lot of them take a while to get there. So, one of the best parts of this experience has been that, we're all part of a community now. So we're all connected to each other, all the female founders who have built big businesses. But one of the things we've learned from each other in this experience is many of us have gone on to build the second business, the third business, and so forth. I remember one of the women in that group has built like something like 14 companies. But what also happens is that circle then raises the bar even further. because you're all kind
Yeah.
of learning from each other and saying, okay, this person built a $1 billion company. This person, did 4 acquisitions. This person. So again, your frame of reference keeps expanding.
Yeah.
And then your skills catch up. And then the moment your vision of what's possible changes, the results follow.
I love that. And for what it's worth, I had a conversation with a billionaire, and he laughs when people say you're a self-made billionaire, because he's like, no, I had people beside me all the way. But he said, Jeff, my version of problems are way more fun than most people's, because the average person is, how do we close one more deal? Whereas I think you're in those rooms, you're going to spur each other on, and you're going to push that innovation. It's like, okay, we got to multi-million in a year that last time. Now you're at Flipwork. I'm going to guess that finish line has now become your starting line. Is that a fair comment?
Absolutely. I think the last ceiling becomes your new floor, and everything changes. What's also changed in building Flipwork is not just the revenue part, but the speed of execution and the margin part. Because at this point, it wasn't so much about how fast can I build a bigger, better company. It was, how can I build something entirely different and something I haven't done before? And so we set the goal of building Flipwork as a true AI native company, everything from the ground up, reimagined, rewired, and built different. And what we are discovering is that the compounding effect of an AI native company is just unbelievable. I mean, I've been building and growing businesses for a long time. I've never seen anything like this. And so the advantage you have is so exponentially bigger, so much bigger than what a traditional business would have, that you really get the sense of, wow, I'm actually years ahead of, what other businesses are. And that's what I would encourage founders to really think about, is don't, just because it's been done a certain way, don't be stuck on that. Push yourself to reimagine entirely.
Well, and I think one of the things I'm obsessed with, I believe that the $1 billion low employee company is out there just waiting to be discovered. I think when people look at AI, they tend to think human or and for traditional companies, I think there's a really tempting, oh, let's get rid of our people and we're going to have a quick win with AI. But I think what I'm hearing in what you built with Flipwork is it's an AI native, it's like my kids, they've grown up with digital devices. To them, it's native to them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to suspect that even though you have a lean team, you still have a team that is leveraging the AI. Is that fair? Or?
Well, we are thinking AI first in everything. Instead of thinking about who do we need to hire, what do we need skills for, we're forcing ourselves to think, what if AI had to do all of it, not just 60%, but all of it. And we start from that baseline until something breaks, and then we add the human back in. So that's the approach we're taking, which is the opposite of how people usually think of it, as here's the human doing the job, and now I can get 20% more efficiency by having them use AI, or get a little bit more speed and all of that. We're doing it the reverse for every single function. We've put AI first, built agents around that, or teams of agents, and then allowed it to go to the breaking point, and only then introduced, additional human capacity. And so I truly believe the $1 billion small team is absolutely possible, because I'm seeing it in my own company. It's coming to fruition. And I think getting to a $10 million business as a solopreneur, absolutely possible. I see no reason anymore why that can be done.
I love that. And one thing I'm thinking is that the human first approach, humans are kind of in the way, you got to deal with change management and blah, blah, blah. It's almost tiny incremental gains, and it's almost a miracle if you get that exponential gain. But when you start with AI first,
Mhm.
you've cleared the playing field of what
Yeah.
we think is possible. And I love that you're pushing to the break point,
Yeah.
because in the
You don't know
traditional
how
model,
you don't know how far you can go until you try to break it, right? Because even our ability to imagine solutions is limited by our own human frame of reference, right? You
yeah,
think something should take X number of weeks to finish, do an MVP build, or you think it's gonna take X amount of handoffs and the meetings that need to happen, and people's capacity for work. When you think AI first, it's almost natural that you're going to embed some of your own limited thinking and bias into those expectations. So the other way around it is to say, well, let AI operate at AI scale and speed, and take it until AI actually breaks, and then think about how you might augment that with more AI. And then, so we've done such creative things that literally I don't think I would have even crossed our minds like 6 months ago. And the compounding effect of this is just absolutely unreal.
well, one of the things I spend a lot of time on is, why do humans not make logical choices? And one of the things that I've recognized is that almost every basic human need, and the one that comes up the most, is we both need certainty and uncertainty. And what I'm hearing you do is you're pushing that uncertainty boundary without a human in the way going, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even the most progressive people are going to say, we need to slow down a little. We need to take it. Whereas I think you're rushing along, and in a controlled way. I don't think this is.
Yeah. I mean, we work with enterprise clients, so we obviously have to have governance and guardrails of the highest
Yeah.
standard. So that's non-negotiable. But the way I think of it is, the idea that you can either have speed or you can have rigor is a false dichotomy. I
Yes.
think real speed comes with extreme rigor. You cannot, but it's sort of like working in intense sprints with the rigor and the intensity that leads to real speed. Speed is not a replacement. Speed should not become an excuse for sloppy work or poor quality or just throwing something over the wall. So what we're doing is having intensity and rigor built in, and then getting to that speed with AI. But here's something really interesting that I've discovered is the kind of people that do well in this environment are absolutely wired differently. This is not your regular office worker type of person who can handle it.
Yeah.
In fact, we've had that situation where we had sort of, I would say, like, you're very capable mid-career professional type of person who was a high user of AI, but really couldn't imagine differently.
Yeah.
And the ones that are doing really great in our environment, I read an essay the other day, and I was like, this perfectly describes the kind of people at Flipwork. It's heat-seeking missile for pain.
I love it.
That's exactly the profile. These are people that are absolutely maniacally obsessed. There's nothing normal. There's nothing mediocre. It is an absolute obsession where it's like a pit bull that won't let go, right? And so they look for pain. They're looking for customer pain. They're looking for, operational pain. They're looking for, team pain, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
They look for that pain. They latch on like a complete obsessive maniacal people, and then they won't let go until the problem is solved. And you give them the power of like infinite intelligence and tell them, my rule is design it fully AI first. Now you have that problem that they're trying to solve. They're thinking completely different from any normal frame of reference, any way of doing business. You give them full creative freedom to reimagine. And their obsession is just solving the pain really, really well. They're doing it so fast that that's, so to me, it was not just discovering that an AI native company means everything, every workflow, every process, every solution is fundamentally designed differently. But the kind of people who can work alongside AI effectively are these heat-seeking missiles for pain.
I love that. And for the record, I feel like you just described me. When I find a problem, like right now, I'm working on a big global problem, and my wife's like, "What's the revenue on that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I have in my spare time, I'm working on human trafficking and how do we end it. And she's like, "What's the answer to that?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet, but I'm going to keep chewing on that." And every day I find another piece of it. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Spoiler alert, most of it comes from poverty. So if we solve poverty, we also can help dent human trafficking. But I think what I'm going to say, and fair warning, Nikki, I have a world of these weirdos that you're desperately looking for and you didn't know it, because when they get a problem, and this is, I think most people, I don't know if you've ever seen the Apollo 13 movie with Tom Hanks, but I love the scene where they walk into a room, dump a bunch of garbage on the desk and say, "Okay, this is what we have, solve it." And I was like, "Oh my God, I would love to be in those rooms." Because most it's like, okay, and their mantra of work the problem. I love that, because I could care less about what's been done or what has worked. I always look at it and go, why haven't we solved it in a different way? And I think your mind is very nonlinear. You're solving exponential problems when most people are doing basic arithmetic and going, "Okay, 1+1 is 2. Yay." Well, okay, that doesn't make the world a better place. That just makes it a little less bad. But
I mean, throughout human history, right? All the things that have moved humanity forward, all the innovation, all the inventions have emerged out of the deeply obsessed. There's no middle manager phoning it in who created anything great. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And what I love about the world we're living in right now, when there's so many things, scientific breakthroughs that are happening every day, is that it's eliminating that middle manager that played traffic cop, right? If you're
like
not
the governor on the engine,
if you're not a hands-on builder, if you're not willing to roll up your sleeve, dig in the dirt, and like work insanely hard and be absolutely maniacally obsessed about problems that matter, your worth is almost like negligible today, because other than like the big companies that still might have a need for that, I think now it's the slogans don't matter. It's the sweat that you can bring to the table, So that's what, like, I feel lucky of being surrounded by that. And, that's our real competitive moat, is actually the kind of people alongside, AI first everything.
I feel like curiosity is a currency. It's in the oxygen in your office or in your space. Now, I could talk to you all day, but I promised you I'd be mindful of your time. You mentioned a newsletter. So where can people go to learn a little bit more about Flipwork and follow your brilliant brain? Because I have a funny feeling you're going to be the one who cracks that first $1 billion tech company that is 99.9% AI, and I'm going to be there at the finish line cheering you on. So
well, you can count on that, because that's literally what my mission is right now, is to crack the code on that. Not because the revenue is the obsession, it's because what it will represent for millions of founders around the world. I think of it like cracking the 4-minute mile. The moment it happened once, everybody else thought was possible. So I'm seeing it happen real time with Flipwork, and I want to, make that happen and set the bar for others, and especially for female founders to do that. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is writing my weekly newsletter on Sundays, and I write it really as a way for me to capture the things I'm thinking about and what I'm learning about, and just share that. And what piques my curiosity, what is helping me compound my growth journey. And I've been fortunate that it's attracted executives and entrepreneurs from all over the world to follow that. So people can find that at nikkibarua.com. And, for Flipwork, check out flipwork.ai. One of the things I'll offer is that there's a free diagnostic on the Flipwork website. Check it out. It's a great way to figure out your own AI readiness, because that's the starting point for you to build, the kind of business that will be game-changing in the world.
I love it. And by the way, I love the flip factor. That is one of my new favorite terms. So I love it. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me and my audience, and for sharing your brilliance with us, because this moves the finish line for everybody. It raises their ceiling. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.